posted 2 separate videos today, so you'll either watch this one first or Jess's. Either way, her video is linked in my description and my video will be linked in her description. We are telling our firstborn's birth story today. That's why we did them separately, because we wanted to let the other one speak as much as they wanted and talk about everything that happened without the other one having to go back and forth, because if we did that, it'd probably be like a 25-minute video. Anyway, so we will go ahead and get into it. So with Dan, my first baby, kind of knew what to expect, but not really. So I did take a birthing class. It was just one day. I was not planning on going natural at all, and I didn't go natural. I knew I wanted the epidural, but I definitely was going to do whatever I needed to avoid the C-section. So I was 37 weeks. I turned 37 weeks on Saturday. I had my appointment on Tuesday to get checked. And at 36 weeks, I was nothing, not dilated, nothing down at all. They test me for group B strep, I think at 36 weeks, whatever. So this was the next week, 37 weeks, checks me again, I'm nothing. I'd had my hospital bag packed for a while, just because my grandma had gone early and my mom had gone early, and I'm really prepared, which is funny because I actually didn't find out the gender of my baby. I didn't with my first or my second, and everyone thought I was crazy. I need to be prepared, I need to be prepared. I love being prepared too, but I just wanted to keep that a surprise for me. So as funny as it is, I do love being prepared, but I didn't find out the gender of my baby. So I had my hospital bag packed and ready, and we went to my appointment. I was nothing again, and my doctor said, we'll probably be seeing you on your due date. And so I was just like, okay, I'll probably, go late. Honestly, I don't even think I'll be here on my due date. I think I'll go late and have to be induced, because my body was not progressing by itself. So that was on Tuesday. So on Thursday, we hung out with some friends. I didn't even eat dinner. I ate a brownie for dinner, like brownie and ice cream for dinner, and I had been staying up really late because I wasn't able to sleep. So I figured out that if I stayed up till midnight, I could sleep in till like 5, because I was waking up at 2 or 3 and not being able to fall back asleep. So I was staying up really late every night. So I went to sleep at 11:30, 12-ish, and I woke up at like 12:45. Now I can't remember. See, the second baby blurs everything. I woke up at like 12:45 or 1, and my water broke. It was instant. I was dead asleep. It broke. I jolted up. I knew what it was instantly. There was no question. And I smacked my husband. I was like, Jared. And he's like half asleep, what? I'm like, my water just broke. He's like, pops up, what? He sprints over the light switch, turns it on. We pull back the covers. It is just soaking wet. We grab everything together. We go to the hospital. It was Memorial weekend. And my mom had planned this trip to Lake Powell, and I told her, I said, Mom, I guarantee I'll have the baby that weekend. She says, no, you're not going to have the baby that weekend. It's your first. You're going to go over. You're not going to have the baby. My mom had just made it to Lake Powell. She went super late. I call her. I didn't think she'd answer. I thought I'd just leave her a voicemail. And she answers. She's like, no, Sydney, no. I'm like, yes, I'm on my way to the hospital. I did not think I was going to be having the baby anytime soon, because I knew I was 0, nothing was happening, and I just didn't think I would be having the baby anytime soon. I told her, I said, just come in the morning, but of course no. She's like, no, I have to come now. Like, I won't be able to sleep anyway. I may as well just come now. So she starts heading home, and we get to the hospital, and you do this swab test. Well, let's just see if it's your water. It was my water, obviously. They were like, yep, okay. So they admit me, and we go in, and they're like, you are a 0 and totally thick. This is going to be a while. Okay, so I was obviously too excited. It's like 2 a.m. I couldn't get any rest, and I had heard that the epidural can slow you down. So I was like, I'm a 0. I don't need to be slowed down. So they give me the Pitocin and my IV, and I'm like, I'm just gonna kind of wait, hopefully get to a 3. Also, my hospital didn't tell me when I could get the epidural. I told them I was planning on getting one. And I said, well, let's just wait. I'm not even feeling contractions right now. Let's wait and I'll get one later. So I won't bore you. I mean, really, we just waited around. Oh, I forgot to mention, when I got to the hospital and they checked me, they did an ultrasound to make sure the baby was head down, which we had already knew he was, but we wanted to make sure, well, we didn't know if it was a he at the time. We wanted to make sure it didn't flip back. So he was head down, but he was posterior. So I was trying everything to get him flipped back while I didn't have that epidural yet. So I was bouncing on a birthing ball. I was on my hands and knees. I was just trying to encourage him to spin around, which didn't work. I was trying everything. Nothing was working. And I mean, hours just kept going by, and they didn't want to check me very often because my water had broken. I was at risk for getting an infection, which we were trying to avoid. So when they did check me, nothing. After 13 hours, no epidural with Pitocin, and at this point I'm crying through my contractions. They're so painful every minute and a half, and I'm at barely half a centimeter. I felt so defeated. I was not planning on a natural birth, but I was like, okay, I'm breathing through my contractions. I'm actually doing really well through them, and I'm not letting them affect me. And I finally had just given up at that point, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, how am I nothing? I've been feeling these so strongly. Like, what's the point? So I gave up. I was like, give me the epidural. Get me the epidural. I'm so sick of this. Just give it to me. My doctor actually came and visited me 3 times before I even had the baby. He eventually even put in a catheter that would measure how strong my contractions were in my uterus because he was so worried that I wasn't going to be able to dilate. I went a full 24 hours, and at midnight that next day, I was finally at a 10, ready to push. So it was a really long time. Obviously, we had the worry of that my water was leaking and it had broken. So we needed to get that baby out so we wouldn't develop an infection. Unfortunately, I was like a 9 or a 10, and I started to get a fever, and it's a pretty telltale sign that you're getting an infection when you get the fever. So I had a fever, the baby had a fever, I was on oxygen, and yeah, basically we knew I had an infection, the baby had an infection too. So luckily I was already at a 10, so I could start pushing, but he was posterior still. So I would push and he would come down and he would go right back in because I couldn't, the skull, if you're posterior, this part of your head is coming out and the baby's forehead isn't malleable like the back is. So he would come down and go right back in, and it was just, we did that for 2 hours, and so the whole time they're trying to stretch me so I'm not tearing. They have their hand inside me, literally trying to twist his head so that he can come down the birth canal. They were thinking, if this doesn't work, the doctor may have to use forceps, like we just can't get anything. So they're like, we're just gonna call your doctor. Maybe he's, a man, he's got bigger hands, stronger hands. Maybe he can flip him around. They call him and he wants me to push for 45 more minutes. And the nurses were like, are you kidding me? This poor girl's been through enough, which I thought the same thing. So, but I was just really annoyed. They went and found a nurse that I guess had the longest fingers, and she came in and she had success flipping him around. So I finally got him all the way down. They called my doctor, he came in, and we finally got him out. I probably pushed for another 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and I finally had him at 2:52. So I had almost 3 hours of pushing, and altogether a labor of 27 hours, so almost 28 hours. He came out, it was a boy. It was the best feeling ever, obviously. They lay him on me, it was just overwhelming. I think I teared up, but I was just so exhausted and happy, and that is like the best feeling, and I was feeling everything. So, he was having a little hard time breathing, but he caught on, and I really just got to hold him. They weighed him. He was 8 pounds, 14 ounces. 8 pounds, 14 ounces, 22 inches long, 22 and a half, I think. Look, I can't remember. And I got to hold him for like 5 more minutes. And because he had an infection, they had to bring him down to the NICU. So I only got to hold him for a minute, and then my husband went with him to the NICU to give him his first bottle because I wasn't able to breastfeed right away. It was just me and the doctor, and I tore really bad with my first. Really, really badly. It was like a 3rd degree deep. So he stitched me up for probably 45 minutes. My epidural was wearing off, and I wanted to go see my baby, and as soon as I stood up, I felt really nauseous and sick. And I did throw up during my labor and delivery, I think twice with Dan. I did throw up, and so I felt like I was going to throw up again, and I was like, I can't do it. I think I'm going to be sick. And I didn't want to be down there fighting back nausea while I'm holding my baby. Then when I was feeling better, I was able to go down and see him after a couple hours. We went into the NICU, I'm washing my hands, and I hear a baby crying, and I instantly knew that's my baby crying. And sure enough, it was. And so it's just a really funny thing that I knew it was my baby, even though I'd only spent a couple minutes with him. We did get to leave the hospital after 36 hours, him and I, because we were on antibiotics. We had to stay longer. He was in the NICU for that, and everything else was checking out, but his bilirubin levels were high. At the time, I had no idea what bilirubin was, and no one was telling me it was jaundice. I had heard of that, but never really knew what it was. And everything was really just going over my head. I had been up for probably 40 hours. I was exhausted. I just wanted to go home. I wanted just to be home. And we came back 2 days later, and his bilirubin levels were super high, on the borderline of dangerous. So we actually had to be readmitted back into the hospital, and he had to spend a night under the hospital lights, which was like the hardest phone call ever. I remember sitting home and crying my eyes out when the doctor called my husband. I told him we had to come in right away because I had just gone home. I had finally been done with the hospital, and we had to go back in. So that was one of the hardest things ever. But after that, he was taken care of. He was done. He didn't have the jaundice anymore, and he was happy, and we were able to come home. That is my first. Comment down below what your experience was like, if we had any similarities, and yeah, but make sure you follow me on Instagram and follow our Unqualified Mamas page, and we'll see you next week.